guys, welcome back to my channel. Today we're doing a home DIY video on this doormat. This is really cost effective. This cost me less than 20 bucks to make, and it is super fun to make. You can make a whole bunch of different designs on this, and Christmas is just around the corner, so I personally think that I would love getting a customized mat from a friend if they do a lot of crafty stuff. So just saying, it is a great idea and it is very cost effective. But without further ado, let's get started. The first material you're going to need is some form of yarn or string or rope that you'll be making the tassels out of. For me, I'm just using yarn because the mat will actually be indoors, so it doesn't really matter and it's not going to run the risk of getting wet and breaking down. For me, I'm using the Yarn Inspiration Karen Cotton Cakes, and this is in like a light gray color. For the tassels, I'm using 18 of them, and I have a separate video that shows you how to make them. I'll link them on the screen here, and then I'll also link them on the description below as well. For the height of the tassels, this is around the height of a credit card holder, so it's just a little bit slightly bigger than a regular credit card. And for the mat, I just got this regular front door mat, and I got this from Home Depot. You can get really any size mat that you like. You can even get a circular one if that's what you prefer. To paint the mat, I'm using these Craft Smart paint, and this is like acrylic paint. You can use any paint that you like. If you're doing it outside, you may want to use something sturdier. For the paint brushes, I just found these two really cheap paint brushes. I'm just going to use this because if it breaks, I really don't care. For painting straight edges and also measuring, I have both my regular tape and also some micropore tape. The micropore tape, I just like the width of it, so I'm just actually going to use that for sizing. And I also have some cardboard here. This is just cardstock paper, and this is for stenciling. And I have my trusty scissors, and I'm also going to be using a bobby pin. The bobby pin, I'm using it sort of like a needle sort of thing. It's just easier to pull through the mat without breaking. And lastly, I just need something to hold the paint with. So I'm going to start this project by painting the mat first. I'm using a cardboard to mark where the lines will be and a measurement tool as well. The reason I'm using a cardboard versus drawing a line on the mat is because the mat is textured, so it's almost like virtually impossible to see where it is. So how I'm doing this is I'm going to go ahead and figure out how wide I want it to be, make a cut on there, and I'm actually going to cut out a square, cut it in half, and by placing those on the mat, I'm going to use them as markers to put the tape down or put a cardboard down for that initial line. So for that initial line, I actually used cardboard. Now thinking back and after finishing the project, I actually think that you guys should just use the tape. So scratch this part. You can use the cardboard if you like. However, I do recommend just go ahead and just tape a line on there. It was just so much easier than doing the cardboard. And I am still leaving this part here and not changing it to the tape because at the end of the day, I do want to be honest with you guys and tell you guys that all these DIY videos, they're all just like trial and errors, so it's all a learning process, but I just wanted to let you know what's the fastest way of doing it and showing you guys that, hey, I'm a real person. Sometimes I also make the wrong choices too, but go ahead and just use the tape. It'll be a lot faster, I promise. So for the painting process, just keep in mind that you're painting a rug, not a flat surface. So you're going to have to use this in like a dabbing motion and it's not going to be even. So what I actually did was I dab a lot of the paint on all over the surface. I try to focus on the edges first to try to really cover the edges. And what I found was the best thing to do was to find something to sift or comb through it afterwards to kind of spread that paint around. What I used was a pottery tool. It's like a pottery rubber tool. You can definitely use this with like a plastic knife. You can use this with a fork. You can pretty much use it with anything just to kind of like sift through the carpet. Once that part is done, it should look something like this. If there's any little patches that you kind of want to cover, you can just kind of pull that tool through a little bit more to kind of spread that color around. If you need to add more paint, you definitely can. I just left it as is because, like I said, I wasn't really bothered with a little bit of the brown showing. The next part I'm painting is a white line right next to the gray. I'm using my micropore tape as a measurement tool. So I'm going to pull out 3 pieces of this tape and I'm going to place it one on each edge and then one in the middle. Then using a long piece of tape, I'm going to tape it down next to all of the measurements, giving me a straight edge for painting the white paint. On the other side, you can put a tape across it if you like. I just didn't because I trusted my own painting skills that I wasn't going to cross the line. However, if you're nervous about it, you can definitely put another piece of tape down. Next, I'm going to make a stencil for the geometric lines that I'll be doing. Depending on what type of shape you are, if you're doing lines, you may want to make a shape that you can do the lines around. For me, I'm doing a bunch of triangles, so what I did was I made a square, and then I cut that square in half to create two equal triangles. Next, I put the two triangles to the edge on both sides of the mat to figure out where that line needs to be, since I'm separating each line with a horizontal line. I then put down another piece of tape to act as a guide for the rest of the painting on this row. To start painting this part, I had each triangle have like a piece of tape on one edge of it, so I can kind of move the triangles around, and that way it can stay in place while I'm painting. The tape I'm using is not super strong, so I do still kind of have to push down a little bit, but it does keep it on place, which is what I really need. So I would highly recommend getting stronger tape if you have, but nothing too strong that's going to leave any residual on the rug. So after this section is done, I'm going to do a line right above that, and that line is going to be the same width as the line under. And I'm going to measure that with the tape that we were using earlier, which is the micropore tape, by placing 3 pieces, one above each one of those lines. And then using those 3 pieces, I'm going to put 2 more pieces of long tape along the top and the bottom, take those 3 pieces out, and that's my guide for the line. I did 2 more rows of this pattern, and then I went over to the other side of the mat and did 3 more rows to even both of them out. Just remember that if you're doing any patterns on a mat, you always want to work from outside in from both sides. It's easier to correct and hide a mistake in the middle than it is to hide it on one end of the mat. For me, I knew I wanted something different in the middle, so it didn't really matter if it fit or not. So here is the completed geometric shapes on both sides of the mat. I decided that I wanted to do 2 more gray stripes in the middle of the mat to even it out, since I had 2 darker gray stripes on the outside. Like I said, I just did 3 rows of the pattern on each side moving in. Now to paint that last 2 gray lines, what I'm measuring with is going to be using those 3 pieces of micropore tape again, and just like the other rows, I'm going to place them 3 of them, 1 on each side and 1 in the middle, and then using a longer piece of tape, I'm going to create that edge. I'm going to do this on both sides of the mat. So here is the mat finished with the painting part of this project. Next is going to be putting on the tassels. So I let the mat to dry for about an hour or so. Afterwards, I folded the mat hamburger style, and that way I can start placing the spot that I want the tassels to be. You can measure this part if you like. I actually just eyeballed them. I used a total of 8 tassels on each side of the mat. I like the tassel a little bit closer together than farther apart. If you want less tassels, you're more than welcome to do that. So whether you want to do 4, 6, or 8, I just chose 8 because I wanted a lot of tassels. To mark them, what I did was I used a silver marker and I marked an X where I wanted each tassel to be. To put the tassels into the mat, I needed a hole. However, I didn't want to just screw a hole into the mat, otherwise it would be a hole that's just too loose. I wanted the tassels to really stay in place. So what I opted to do was actually to create an X with an X-Acto knife. So you would go down from one corner of the X, down, and then another corner of the X and down. That will create a nice cut of like an X. Next, I'll thread the yarn through the bobby pin like so. This will act like it's a needle, and we will stick the open end of the bobby pin into the X and pull through the yarn. After it's been pulled through, it should look something like this. You should have your tassel on top and 2 strands of yarn on the bottom. The 2 strands of yarn, what I'm going to have you do is split them. You're going to place the tassel in the middle, and we're going to go over and overlap them. And we're going to go under and overlap again to pull it back to the top. We're going to do this twice, and then we're going to do a double knot on top. Once the double knot is nice and tight, you can cut off any loose strands that are sticking out, and your tassel is attached. Continue to do this for the rest of the tassels onto the mat, and that will complete your mat. So that concludes today's DIY video. Hopefully you guys enjoyed it. Please be sure to give me a thumbs up if you did enjoy this video. It lets me know what type of content you guys like me to make. And also be sure to subscribe and click that little bell button. That'll let you know every time I have another DIY video coming out and keeps you guys updated. Other than that, I will be starting my little routine of posting a DIY video every week or 2. So stay tuned. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you guys later. Bye!